Over the course of the off-season, I have looked back at some of the greatest moments of this year in the Gen 6 or the Gen 6 in general, but I haven't really looked back on 2021 as a whole, and that's what I want to do today. I want to look back at the races that defined this season, the ones that, in my opinion, were the best. Now, these might not align with other list videos I've done, but I think for the most part, it'll be pretty fun. Again, these are all my opinions, so just take that in mind when we go into this. But before that, a word from our sponsor. With 2022 fast approaching, many of us are trying to get better overall with the new year. I know for me, it's continuing my fitness journey while also trying to balance it with work, among other things. And to do this, I use HelloFresh. HelloFresh helps me because it saves me time with easy prep meals, it's sustainable for when I need it, and on top of all that, it's actually really delicious. So I can keep up with my busy days while I'm enjoying my great food. Here, I'm having some Baja Barramundi, and it is absolutely incredible.
That's incredible.
So, to get your own HelloFresh order today, go to HelloFresh.com. Use code Iceberg16 for 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com. Use code Iceberg16 for 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Now, with that, back to the show. At number 10 is the Rackley Roofing 200, a truck series race from the Nashville Super Speedway. Now, in my opinion, this is going to be a race that not many people are going to think should be on this list, and it might be more because of the coverage itself. But for someone like me who was there, I felt like this race was the best race of the weekend at Nashville. You see, there was plenty of difficulty to pass, and a lot of people, including us in the stands, thought that the race started out very boring. But as the night got on, the racing got better, and on top of that, if you didn't just focus on the front 2 or 3, the middle part of the pack was 2, 3, and even 4 wide racing for much of the night. There were tons of battles throughout, and it was really fun to watch. And at the end, there was a great finish with Ryan Preece beating out Grant Enfinger and Todd Gilliland in a nice late race duel. At number 9 was the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at the Daytona International Speedway. Of course, we had to have at least one Daytona race on here. And what better one to put than the playoff cutoff race, seeing how the 500 itself was pretty awful. See, through much of the night, it was actually really clean. A lot of me and my friends made a lot of remarks of how there weren't really too many cars, or if any cars, that were dropping out of the race past the halfway point. Of course, stuff got crazy towards the end, as it always does, and more cars got crashed than ever, but that's not what makes the race great. You see, that intensity of the racing was incredibly high because of the playoff cut line. Anyone who hadn't won a race could lock themselves in by getting a win, and you saw a lot of daring moves throughout the pack and throughout the last part of the night. In the end, though, it was Ryan Blaney who managed to be in the right place at the right time to get the victory and bring momentum into the playoffs. At number 8 was the Geico 500 at the Talladega Superspeedway. In my opinion, this race was just a little bit better than the one at Daytona in the fall. You see, of course, there was the typical intensity of Talladega racing, but for most of this day, there wasn't really any train racing. There was a lot of side-by-side racing, some very respectable racing, and then there was also the crazy intensity. The big one that people are going to remember was Joey Logano flipping over Bubba Wallace's car, and it's a pretty damn cool shot to look at. But there was a lot more to it. The end of the stages were incredibly thrilling. While there wasn't too much carnage, there was just enough. And at the end of the day, there was a great duel at the finish between Matt DiBenedetto and Brad Keselowski, where DiBenedetto made an ill-fated move to block the top line, giving Keselowski the bottom and, in turn, the win. At number 7 is the Southern 500 at the Darlington Raceway. This was good old-fashioned, old-school, difficult racing with slipping and sliding that we all love, with the high horsepower, low downforce package that really lent itself well to a race like Darlington. There was plenty of differing strategies. There were tons of comers and goers, good guys on short runs, good guys on long runs. It was a slow burn kind of race that led to a great finish. It had some crazy moments like Kyle Busch's really stupid pit road incident, but at the end, it was Denny Hamlin versus Kyle Larson, the two best drivers all season long fighting for the win, with Denny Hamlin edging out Kyle Larson after he made an insane bonsai video game move that was akin to that of 2008 at Kansas with Carl Edwards. And number 6 is the Xfinity 500 at the Martinsville Speedway. This race had an electric energy to it. Being there in person with such a huge crowd, you really felt the gravity and importance of this race. There was tons of buzz in the air for every driver that was left in the playoffs. There was tons of drama on the track early on as there was really tight and close racing. There was a drama with Quinn Houff. And then at the end, the finish with Denny Hamlin and Alex Bowman getting into each other, Hamlin spinning up into the wall, and his hometown crowd cheering it, made for a great race. Then, when Alex Bowman scampered away with the win, Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski got together, which led to some not so favorable comments from Kyle Busch, and just all around some really good drama for the playoffs. And it made for a great lead up into the finale at Phoenix the next week. And number 5 was the Foxwood Resort Casino 301 at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Now, I did put this as my top race of 2021 in a previous video, but since watching some other races, it has been taken down just a small peg, but still in the top 5. This race was one that, in my opinion, will be severely underrated and is really a great race overall when you look past the controversy. Now, the controversy to start the race was starting the race with rain in the area and the track being wet. And this crashed the leaders, 3 of which being Joe Gibbs' cars, and was just an awful way to start a NASCAR race. But because of the limited amount of light and the fact that rain was coming, there was a cutthroat rate to this race. It was constantly going as fast as could be. And there was good side-by-side racing too, and plenty of passing, so the fast cars wouldn't get too caught up behind the slow cars. There was no idea when it would end because of the fact that rain could be in the area, because of the fact that light was an issue, and at the end they did have to shorten it. But there was an excellent run with Eric Almirola running for his playoff life from Christopher Bell, eventually beating out the young driver. At number 4 is the Xfinity Championship race at the Phoenix International Raceway. Of course, this race was going to have a lot of drama. It was the title race. But in my opinion, this past year, the Xfinity Series had been the best series, and that was no different at Phoenix, as this was the best finale. There were 4 viable championship drivers. There was great racing throughout the pack, much like there had been throughout the year. A lot of guys that were leading up front, and a lot of guys challenging for the lead who weren't championship guys. That and the fact that when good drivers or championship drivers would be shuffled back to the strategy, they were able to make their way towards the front, but still get raced in a very good way. There was a hell of a finish too, between Daniel Hemrick and Austin Cindric. Hemrick coming into the weekend in the championship 4, but never getting a win in any of NASCAR's top 3 series. At the end, him and Cindric raced each other relatively cleanly, and with a little bumping and banging, Hemrick barely nudged out Cindric for the championship. Entering the podium at number 3 was a Sport Clips VFW Help a Hero 200 at the Darlington Raceway. This was a great race of tire strategy and difficult driving, just like the Southern 500, but with it being under the daylight, there was a lot more slipping and sliding and a lot more narrow of an area for error. The lead changed often. No one could really dominate. I think the largest amount of time someone was in the lead was when Denny Hamlin led for 24 laps straight, because strategy and other good cars made sure that the race stayed competitive. It was really looking to be Denny Hamlin versus Noah Gragson. Gragson being very good at Darlington in the past, but just never being able to put it all together. But after Denny Hamlin had a pit penalty, Gragson would have to rise to the occasion, beating out eventual champion Daniel Hemrick, as well as Harrison Burton and Austin Cindric, who were charging as well. It was a great showing for Gragson, who at the time was unsure about his future. At runner-up is the top cup race on the list, the Bristol Night Race at, of course, the Bristol Motor Speedway. This was Bristol, baby. There's no other way really to put it in small talk. But let's start off. Like most new Bristol races, the race started off with a lot more of a bottom feeder approach due to the sticky stuff being put on the track, but eventually cars went towards the top. But interestingly, with this Bristol race, it seemed like both lines were even enough to have good racing while still having the beating and banging aspect of Bristol we all love. Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick fought for the lead, with Chase Elliott coming out the big loser to start. But when Elliott had to go down pit road, get new tires, go back on the track, he was 2 laps down. He was fighting for his playoff life. And in a way of helping his teammate and getting back at Kevin Harvick, he basically just stayed in Harvick's line, messed up the air just enough that Kyle Larson could sneak by and run away with the win. But the thing is, that wasn't even the biggest drama of the night. You see, Kyle Busch also had issues, so he was fighting for his playoff life, and towards the end, the playoff cutoff battle was absolutely razor thin. And, like many point out, the highlight of the race was really the fact that NBC had to put up 3, sometimes 4 different cameras following the guys on the cutoff, with all of them battling for position hard with whoever was around them. Whether you like the playoffs or not, again, you have to admit this really had high-stakes drama, even if you're just watching for the racing. And with that, at number 1, we have the only thing that can beat a Bristol night race, another Bristol night race, with the Food City 300, of course, at the Bristol Motor Speedway. This was the last race of the regular season for the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2021, and you could see a lot of drivers trying to fight as hard as they could for position, but unlike Cup, it isn't as much to do with parity. But throughout the race, there was a lot of really old school short track racing, a lot more on the bottom line than I think a lot of people were thinking was going to be. And there was one guy who, in my opinion, kind of stole the show, Justin Allgaier. You see, Allgaier had a great car and led a good amount of the race, but due to some issues of his own making, he would have to be shuffled to the back of the pack and then would have to make a hard charge to the front. At the end, though, he did challenge for the win with both AJ Allmendinger and Austin Cindric, as well as Riley Herbst even getting up there. But it was AJ and Austin who fought both for the regular season title and for the win. Beating and banging in the last 2 or 3 laps, you didn't know which of the top 3 or 4 cars was going to win. For all you knew, they were going to crash and 5th was going to win. Well, the 2 leaders did crash. They crashed going for the win, with AJ Allmendinger's car getting totaled as he crossed the finish line in first, just ahead of Austin Cindric. And with that, that's it. That is my top 10 list for the best races of 2021 in NASCAR. Now, I want to pass this on to you. So let me know down in the comments what your favorite races of 2021 were. While you're at it, leave a like in this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Also, thank you to all my channel members for your support. It really helps out me and the channel. So until next time, have a good one.